Well, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday to you. I'm Marlon Bowling, your tour guide to the ag commodities, and we're talking right now with Rich Nelson of Allendale, and he joins us to kind of set the stage for today's market activity. Well, today we finally get the March supply and demand numbers. The crop production numbers for South America will be included in that. Just off the wire here a moment ago here, Rich, as I was heading down to the studio, we got news that we did sell some soybeans to China. This was an overnight sale reported by USDA, and this time it was 664,000 tons of soybeans. It was all for the current marketing year for 2018 and 2019. So I guess you can add that to the mix. That would be a few boatloads, apparently, Panamax vessels, as they say. So is that going to have much overall impact on the trade today, do you think?
Very good question, especially in the face of our WASDE report we have in just a few hours, in the face of, well, it's also a slightly disappointing U.S. job growth number here this morning as well. So in the face of these other issues, I think maybe it might give us a little higher trade start, but probably not be a major driver here just yet.
Okay, so we're going to be having several reports coming out, U.S. ending stocks, world ending stocks, South American production. Of all of those numbers, which one would you look at first?
I think everybody's going to have maybe a different choice for this time around, but for ourselves at least, we probably would be looking at the U.S. or soybean ending stock numbers. Big question for us is this is going to be some moderate changes to demand, and certainly some questions we have on the corn end of things is about both exports and corn for ethanol here.
Okay, Rich, we had such a negative washout in the grain markets yesterday, especially in that wheat trade, carving out new contract lows in Chicago and in Kansas City. And I guess I was thinking about that this morning when I was getting ready to come in and do our broadcast day here. And it occurred to me, so many analysts that I spoke with yesterday said it was a lot of computer trading, algorithmic trading that had triggered orders, and it just more or less built on itself. And I had to wonder, you know, you look at the market and they took such a short position yesterday, but there's always a buyer for every seller in the market. Who's buying all that yesterday?
And that's a great question. I think that's also probably part of the argument right there. The very fact is, while a lot of people suggest maybe these markets are undervalued for the long-term picture, I think the question for everybody on the buy side is, are you willing to actually put up money to say now is the time to get active? So I think maybe that's certainly a second point of concern that we all have right now.
It just makes you wonder, the end users must have looked at that yesterday as a gift. I mean, when you come to grain merchandisers or exporters or what have you, to be able to swoop in and buy those markets up at cheaper values like that and secure the needs for future export business or whatever. So I just had to wonder about that. I wanted to ask you about that while I had a moment here this morning. Overnight, everything just very quiet in advance of the reports, maybe a penny higher. That's about it. We'll come back here in a moment and we'll take a look at what to expect in our livestock trade. We did get some old cold storage data yesterday. We'll talk about that when we come back. We're talking with Rich Nelson of Allendale, Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. And before I forget here, Rich, I just wondered how you came along. I know you guys do your own planning survey every year. Are you done with that now?
You know, this does actually wrap up today at the close of business. Really important for us to get as many people in there as possible. So anybody who still has not participated yet, we certainly encourage you guys to help us out if we can here.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, of course, USDA will be having their own prospective planning numbers at the end of the month. Cold storage numbers came out yesterday after the markets closed, and a lot of analysts kind of wondered if that would have any impact whatsoever. But here are the numbers. We do have these for everybody. When it comes to the frozen red meat supplies, the supplies were up 7% from back in December, down 1% from a year ago. The beef supplies were 3% higher than December, up 2% from a year ago. Pork up 11% from the previous month and down 3% from a year ago. And even the bellies, the supplies were up 27% from the end of the year, and they were 23% higher than what we had a year ago. Does that mean much today?
You know, for the most part, probably not, especially in the face of cash cattle trading, in the face of other issues going on for us here today. But, you know, as far as these numbers, I will point out that the beef stock numbers did increase 57 million pounds from the previous month. That sounds bad, but January is actually normally an inflow month anyway. So in this case, probably not as bad as it looks here in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, on our livestock summary, boy, it turned out to be an active day on a Thursday, kind of unusual. A lot of times the cash cattle trade waits until late on Friday to get established, and all of a sudden the floodgates opened up yesterday. We had all kinds of movement, and it looks like on the cash basis out in the country, the market was bringing 127 to 128. I guess that would be steady to a dollar lower than what we had the previous week, and on a dress basis, 204 to 205 yesterday. That's per hundredweight, of course, and that would be also steady to about a dollar under what we had a week ago. Trading volume was said to be fairly moderate out there. So is that going to contribute much to the trade today?
Probably give us more of a mixed trade here for the live cattle markets. Big questions for us about this coming forecast, though, with further precip for the plains. I think this one might give us still a supportive trade in the grand scheme of things here today.
I do have to mention the beef cutout values. They did increase yet again yesterday. So even though the cash cattle market seemed to have kind of stalled out a little bit, here on the beef cutouts, we had the choice cuts up $1.11 yesterday afternoon. Selects were up 17 cents. And on the pork side, we had the pork carcass cutout values gaining $1.19, and we had the belly market up $2.65. Is that going to help to buoy the trade, even though we had some relatively unfriendly cold storage numbers?
It should give us at least some stability. A lot of questions about the slaughter numbers this week. Still will be a large week for processing numbers. We haven't seen supply change yet, but hopefully, like you're mentioning, some of this wholesale pork action, it could be leading the way right now.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. And don't forget, we get the February cattle and feed after the close today, so be prepared for that. I'm Rich Nelson of Allendale.